This right here is the first dedicated battery electric product from Lexus, and it spearheads the brand's intentions of going all electric by 2035. While it was beaten to the electric market by Lexus's own UX Electric, this right here is based on the eTNGA platform shared by the Subaru Solterra and Toyota BZ4X electric twins. That means ideally that it should have no petrol DNA under the skin. But let's put that to the test and go for a drive. Let's get the numbers out of the way first. The Lexus RZ450e scores a 71.4 kilowatt-hour battery, which powers two electric motors, one at the rear axle and one at the front. These motors are incorporated into what Lexus calls the e-axles, which optimize traction based on a range of data including vehicle speed, steering angle, and G-force. The 230 kilowatt combined outputs are broken into 150 kilowatts at the front e-axle and 80 kilowatts at the rear. Lexus says the RZ450e will run roughly 450 kilometers on a single charge. Talking in terms of design, it still is obvious Lexus. It does get that spindle grille, though it is closed off considering it's an EV. It does have that sort of pinch shape around the headlights. If you come around the rear here, you'll see an obvious cutout for the charge port on the side here. Then as you continue further along the back of the car, it does have a tapering roofline which looks akin to a coupe-look SUV. Around the rearmost, it does get a light bar, which is in keeping with current Lexus design language. You can see from its design that the RZ borrows much of its sizing and styling from the incoming Lexus RX large SUV. While it has all the sharp styling cues the brand is known for, Lexus hasn't gone all out on creating a wildly styled electric car, which is a tactic some other car makers have employed. Inside the RZ's cabin, it is a very futuristic and driver-centric design. Most obviously, it gets this yoke Formula One style steering wheel, which is very weird to look at, let alone use. I imagine it will take some time getting used to for the daily commute. This yoke is tied to a steer-by-wire system that facilitates an electronic connection between the controls and the front wheels. It reduces steering effort in situations such as U-turns and roundabouts and has 150 degrees of steering lock instead of 540 for a conventional mechanical steering system. The lack of a top and bottom of the steering wheel means that the driver can get inside the car more easily, and it also means that this cluster ahead of the driver is further set closer to the windscreen and the driver's field of view for easier at-a-glance visibility. Otherwise, you've got a display here which is skewed towards the driver, Lexus's very comfortable seats, and a new gear selector down here on the center console. You've also got the new Lexus infotainment software, which replaces the outdated touchpad controls with a far simpler touchscreen functionality. Now obviously I'm on the wrong side of the car to give this RZ prototype a proper Australian test drive, so let's take it on a quick preview drive of Toyota's test track. Well, let's start with the most obvious thing in front of my hands here. It's the steering. The yoke steering wheel does feel a bit weird and I had reservations about it, but it's a steer-by-wire system, which means that it's electronic connection to the front wheels instead of a mechanical linkage. Now that means that you're actually not putting in as much steering effort as you'd normally require in a conventional steering system, and I can particularly see that it will be pretty handy when you're driving around town. Tight maneuvers like this little U-turn I've got going here, I'm only putting in a very minimal amount of effort to turn this car around, and it's getting around with ease. Lexus hasn't provided a turning circle figure at the moment, but it does feel quite tight, and sort of, if you are steering a minimal amount of effort, it does feel like an easy thing to turn around. In terms of feedback, there definitely is a bit less feedback than you normally get in a conventional steering system. It does iron out most of those sort of little imperfections and vibrations that you would normally feel through a steering rack, but it doesn't quite feel devoid of any feel whatsoever. The steering feel is a bit heavier than expected, and it takes a bit longer than normal to return to center like a normal steering wheel. That is particularly handy when you're doing high-speed maneuvers and changing lanes when you're going on freeway speeds, but when you do get down into around town and parking for that sort of matter, it does become a little bit lighter to aid that sort of maneuverability. I'm going to punch the car here, and it certainly feels quite fast for my book. Tipping the car into a corner here, and you do feel that direct 4 all-wheel drive system sort of managing where the traction should be at any given moment. It is a clear sunny day in Melbourne, so there's no slippage from any wheel at the moment, but it does do a good job at putting down that power effectively. We're told by Lexus that this is somewhere between the NX and RX on the exterior dimensionally, It is quite spacious inside. I sat in the back before, there's a ton of room, and it's got a nice cabin ambience feel. The roof above me is opaque and does go clear if you do want it to, but it's not that sort of sunshade thing that you get with a lot of other premium cars. As is pretty normal for a Lexus product, the suspension feel is pretty compliant and it's very comfortable when going on these roads. Granted, it's a Toyota test track, so we'll need to take it on a bit of a more scenic drive to really make a call, but from where I'm sitting, it does feel nice and premium. Lexus says that this steering wheel is designed that you don't need to take your hands off the wheel at all. You've got all these controls like the indicator stalk and the wiper stalk that move with the wheel, which is something to get used to, but it is very handy, and once you do get used to it, it is very intuitive and simple to use. Being an EV, it is a serene experience inside the cabin, and there's not too much vibrations or noise coming through to the cabin. Even after just a quick taste test, it's clear that the RZ450e is a way forward for Lexus. The product is not too far removed from the things that you'll see in a Lexus showroom today, which is a positive for buyers looking to make that transition to electric power. Stay tuned to Drive.com.au for the full rundown on all things Lexus RZ.